today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
recognizing the signs of infidelity. Somewhere between 20% and 40% of all marriages experience infidelity. You definitely know somebody who's got some infidelity going on, and who knows, it might be you. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship, and welcome to Infidelity Unmasked, Recognizing the Signs. The statistics on infidelity are that somewhere between 20% and 40% of all marriages experience infidelity. That means 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 marriages. That means out of your friend group, all right, you definitely know somebody who's got some infidelity going on, and who knows, it might be you. And how do you know? That's what we're going to talk about today. What are the signs of infidelity? In order to recognize the signs, we need to have an understanding of what is infidelity. What are the types of infidelity? Infidelity is a slippery slope. I was just on a podcast with a sex expert talking about infidelity, and we were talking about how infidelity often starts with what has come to be known as emotional infidelity. Emotional infidelity is where we start speaking with someone on a level of intimacy and confiding in them in a way that really we should be doing with our partner. I've worked with a lot of people who have had this going on, and typically it starts like this. Both partners have their hands full with life, raising children. Maybe they're very involved in their own jobs and they don't have children, but they're not focusing on the marriage. Both partners are experiencing dissatisfaction, but they don't really have time to talk about it. One partner finds someone, maybe at work, maybe somewhere else, who they feel comfortable with, and it starts out as just a casual conversation. But underneath that casual conversation is a spark of attraction. And the story that they tell themselves is, I would never have an affair. I wouldn't have a relationship with someone at work, or whatever the story is. Or maybe there is no story. Maybe there's a spark of attraction and they just chase it, depending on where they grew up and how they feel about infidelity. The next step from the spark of attraction is maybe they start complaining about their marriage. Oh, my marriage with Beth is so unsatisfying in so many ways. Sexually, it's just awful. Well, that's really not a conversation you should be having with a random stranger. Maybe you should be having it with a therapist, and certainly they should be having it with Beth. But when we start talking about very personal things, particularly about our marriage and about our lives with another person, personal things that we should be saving for our marriage, that is the beginning of the step into the slippery slope. Maybe from there, we get into a digital relationship with them where we're texting back and forth, and late at night, it turns into sexting back and forth, or maybe it actually becomes physical. The point being that the real breach is in opening the door to having a kind of relationship with someone that is not appropriate unless you're married to them or with them. And it's interesting because there's all kinds of ways we can step out of the marriage. Pornography might be a way of stepping out of the marriage and into a fantasy world that does not involve them and closes them out. You can have a relationship with an AI now, and you can actually pay the AI to give you explicit pictures of it that it creates, it renders. You can pay you're not paying the AI, you're paying the company that owns the AI. It's a form of sexual slavery when you think about it. You can pay them to have the AI sex text you or have a dirty video relationship with you. This is all happening now. And you might tell yourself, well, it's not really stepping out on the marriage because it's artificial intelligence. It's an object. It's like masturbating, except that it's not. It's emotionally checking out of the relationship. All right, so there's emotional, there's physical, there's digital, there's financial infidelity. There's all kinds of ways that we can cheat, break the rules, skirt the gray areas around our marriage. And it's super important that it gets caught early because it's a slippery slope. If you don't catch it early, then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, what's confusing about this is that many of us are in distant relationships with our spouses already. We're also busy with our work. We're also busy with our personal development. We're also busy with our individual growth. And sometimes we don't take the time to focus on what's going on with the other person. Sometimes we don't take the time to express our needs, our unfulfilled needs. We put them on the shelf thinking that we can get to them later. And as that emotional distance grows, as we withdraw from the relationship, actually, it's unfair to say withdraw. We stop investing in the relationship, and so it becomes more distance. There's reduced intimacy. We have less sex. When we do, it doesn't feel close anymore. It just feels like, hey, you know what? We're just doing a physical act together for each other's release. There's a lack of emotional connection or real intimacy. And there's increased irritability or defensiveness. Maybe we're afraid to talk because we're afraid of conflict, that the conflict that comes with increased irritability or defensiveness. This is, by the way, one of the first signs is that there's emotional distance. So if you're experiencing this kind of emotional distance in your relationship, there may be infidelity. And certainly, if there isn't infidelity, the foundation has been laid for there to be infidelity. Another sign would be actual changes in behavior. Maybe your partner is becoming more secret. Maybe they're more irritable when you ask them questions. Maybe they're hiding their phone. Maybe they're getting messages and going off and telling you, oh, it's work. Maybe they're not home as often as they used to be. They seem to be traveling a lot for work or off on meetings a lot. Maybe they're deleting messages. There are actually apps now that you can have, texting apps that will automatically delete text conversations after every 8 hours. Maybe they've got one of those going on. Maybe they are spending a lot of time on their computer in their office, and when you come in, they suddenly change screens. All of these changes in behavior, this move towards greater secrecy, this hiding their communications, they're framing everything as being work related, or maybe, oh, it's George, their best friend or whatever. These changes in behavior can be signs that your marriage is on that slippery slope of infidelity. Another sign would be changes in appearance. They suddenly grow their hair longer. They suddenly cut their hair shorter. Maybe they decide they're going to have facial hair. Maybe they get new clothes. People buy new clothes. Just because somebody buys new clothes doesn't mean that they are committing infidelity, but they have a whole new look going on. They've decided to create a new image for themselves. Suddenly they're focused on fitness, and they didn't tell you about it. They just start doing it. There's a new smell or scent on them. Might even be somebody else's. This is a series of pieces that could indicate infidelity and should certainly arouse your suspicions. The fourth sign is unusual financial activity. Maybe they're not putting in like they used to, or maybe they're just not talking about their bonuses anymore. Maybe they have expenses that they're saying are due to other things, but you just know something's not right. They're secretive regarding their finances. There might be digital clues that something's going on. Maybe there's a sudden interest in social media, or they might even have a dating app that they're hiding from you. They're spending a lot of time on their phone or a lot of time on their computer. They're getting text messages and calls from unfamiliar numbers. They're getting emails. They're suddenly much more interested in email when they used to hate email. These are all digital clues that perhaps there's infidelity occurring in your marriage. There might be a sudden increase or decrease in sexual activity. Suddenly they want to have sex with you more. Or maybe it's just not happening. Or here's a very common sign right here. They have a new trick, a new sexual behavior or preference. Very common when someone's having an affair with someone else, or they're participating in watching a lot of pornography, that they learn new tricks and bring them into the marriage because they're all about them And so if they're enjoying something somewhere else, they're going to try it out with you. And they would never think that you would suspect that it came from another resource. There are changes in their communication patterns. They're just not talking to you like they used to. They're not talking to you as much. They're evasive in their communication. Maybe they're frequently texting or calling other people who are unnamed, or they refer to as work colleagues. Maybe they're taking phone calls in private. You hear them talking in the bathroom. You hear them in the walk-in closet. You hear them down in the basement. They're sitting in the car having conversations, and they didn't used to do that. I want to tell you, some people sit in the car and have work conversations so that they can shut down work before they walk in the house. But if your partner wasn't doing that and is doing it now, this may be a change. Their routine has changed. They've got new hobbies or new interests that just don't seem to include you, or they don't invite you to it. Maybe they're suddenly interested in boxing, a martial art, Krav Maga. They're interested in horses. They're interested in ballet. They're interested in music they didn't used to be interested in. They're taking frequent trips or nights out with friends and coming home at really odd hours after you're asleep, or maybe even the next day, and they have really weak excuses. It might be that your friends are noticing a change in your partner and talking to you about it, and you've just been writing it off. Or it might be that your family has been commenting on it. And I'm going to tell you that that's not completely fair. Mother-in-laws have been known to be paranoid about this and comment on it even when it's not happening. But that doesn't mean you should discount what they're saying. What, in particular, if they notice changes in behavior or attitude in your partner, that's something to pay attention to. And the last sign is a persistent feeling that something is wrong or being hidden. You need to just trust your gut. All right. These are all real life signs of infidelity. And if you're experiencing just some of them, the chances are something's not right in your marriage. And you either need to shift and change that pattern before infidelity happens, or maybe emotional infidelity is happening and you want to shift and change it to bring them back. Or maybe there's actual physical infidelity going on. It could be that your partner's got pornography addiction that needs to be interceded in, but something's not right here. I've had a lot of clients who have had infidelity. My favorite, I'm going to call them Tony and Tanya, was of all times, it was during the pandemic. And they both had full-time jobs. And Tanya's job demanded that she be out of the house a lot, even during the pandemic. And she exhibited a lot of these signs during their relationship. And Tony recognized it and actually put a tracking chip in her car, and found out that when she said she was at work, she was actually at a motel. And Tony brought it to her attention, and they came and worked with me. And in working together, they had almost all of these signs going on. And in the end, it was his gut feeling and his willingness to take action that saved the marriage. And there are things that you can do to save the marriage when there's infidelity. But more importantly, even if you can't save the marriage, if we find ourselves feeling like we're victims, it's very easy to say there's something wrong with them. How could this happen to me? But the truth is that it can only happen to me if I'm not paying attention. It can only happen to me if there are old emotions or attitudes that I'm allowing to get in the way of my recognizing what's going on. It can only happen to me if I'm unwilling to change myself. And so whether there's going to be reconciliation in the relationship, or whether you're going to get into a relationship with someone else, nothing is going to change until you work on yourself. So if you're seeing or experiencing these things, be aware that the starting point is you. What Tony needed to do was trust his gut and take an action, even though it seemed distrustful to put a chip in that car and track Tanya. It's what he needed to do, and it turned out he was right. It's better to take an action and feel guilty that you were mistrustful because nothing comes up, than to not take an action and have an ongoing problem in your relationship. So just to recap, there are 10 basic signs of infidelity. There's emotional distance, changes in behavior, changes in appearance, unusual financial activity, digital clues, intimacy changes, changes in communication patterns, changes in routines, family and friends' observations, and your own gut feeling. And infidelity does not happen in a vacuum. You are a participant in that infidelity, whether you like it or not. Now that you recognize the signs of infidelity, you are able to take action. If you're not, if you see any of these signs and you don't know what to do, I want you to feel free to reach out to me, contact me, Rich at richinrelationship.com, or look out for the infidelity workshop that we have coming up in the beginning of June. We're going to go all over steps you can take and how you can heal the relationship in that workshop. Go to richinrelationship.com for more information. We're going to be doing a couple of more episodes on infidelity in honor of this upcoming workshop. The next one is going to be, what are the factors that contribute to infidelity? So that now you've seen the signs of infidelity. The next episode is going to be all about what is situationally, what is going on that might encourage infidelity. And so listen in for the next episode in this series on infidelity, its causes, recognizing it, and what you can do about it.